Welcome everyone to the teachings of Samata. We are here today with our beloved Guru, Swami Durgananda, and Joe. The conversation today is on states of consciousness from Swami's book, Why Am I?
Hi Swami, it's great to see you again.
It's good to see you too, Joe.
That's good. How you been?
Not too bad.
Excellent. Now we'll discuss states of consciousness in Why Am I, Chapter 2 today. But before we do get into that, I'd like you to explain to me a couple of incidences I had. And I just wanted to understand states of consciousness on how they are. So the first one is I went to visit my dad in an aged care facility. And when we walked in, my dad was asleep. My mum walked up to him, shook him, woke him up, and then he seemed to be all disorientated and out of whack and out of focus and all that. And after a few minutes, he got back into his normal self. So my question is, what state of consciousness would this be?
Well, he was not in the physical state of consciousness. He was in that state of consciousness that we call the subconscious state of mind, which is just a little bit more, how can you say it that you understand? It's more internal, because as we move through the states of consciousness, we move from the outside inside.
So would it be an astral aspect?
Yes, he was closer to that higher consciousness, if you like. It's like when you're asleep and you first wake up, your whole body, you actually can't feel it, but you feel for the first few instants really healthy, really well.
So diverting a little bit from the question, what would be a really good way to wake up for people to wake up with a good start, so to speak?
Well, don't let the cat jump on you.
And if you don't have a cat?
I think you just have to wake easily. And I always think if you've been dreaming, or if you've had a dream just before you wake up, you should analyse that dream before you get out of bed.
Oh, that's a good thought.
Because that's when your higher self, or that spirit self, or soul self, is actually giving you messages, and then you have to work it out. That's why I always say, when you're reading spiritual books, excuse me, to really read them properly, you know?
Yeah. So with that, how can I put this? With the next question, for example, I was at a red traffic light. Lights turned green. My gut said, wait. About 2 seconds later, a car just flew through the intersection. So it's a two-part question. First part is, what was my state of consciousness for my gut to say, wait? And then obviously the second part is, what was her state of consciousness for her not to even be aware of her surroundings?
Your state of consciousness was that you were aware enough to have that higher consciousness speak to you, and you understood it and you obeyed it. That's like when something says to you, or you feel a voice inside you that says, you know, take the umbrella, it's going to rain, and you think, oh, what a load of rubbish, it's not. And you get out, and 5 minutes later you're soaking wet because it did rain. So you were able to listen to yourself and be aware, and then stop and take notice. And the person who went through the red light, well, I'm not quite sure where they were. And I think really they probably didn't know where they were either.
Yeah, I thought
in
that
this
myself.
Day and age.
I thought that myself. I suppose now we'll start off with the podcast called States of Consciousness. If you've got the book of Why Am I, please turn and open it up to Chapter 2.
Okay, I will do it too.
Oh, thank you.
2. Okay.
If not, after this podcast, we can direct you to how you can purchase your copy. Now, questions from the book, but the first question I'm going to ask you, Swami, is when I ask you what the states of consciousness means to you, what's the first thing that hits you?
That I have to move through them all to come home to myself.
Nice. I like that. How can you explain the states of consciousness to us and what are the main takeaways that we need to meditate on?
Oh, gosh, that is quite a question, isn't it, really?
I'm the question asker, Swami.
You certainly are. So what do the states of consciousness mean? I think for a lot of people, they get carried away in today. You know, with the cell phone, they've got, you know, always chatter, always friends, always connecting. There's no time for yourself. And if you
That's
don't have
true.
time for yourself, you're not going to transcend the states of consciousness. And you need to actually not be going in your day-to-day life in that lower consciousness, if you know what I mean. It's really hard to explain it to you, Joe. Ask another question.
I will, but I'll just ask you one more on that one, Swami. With the world of instant everything now,
Yes.
how do we get away from the phone, the instant friends, the instant this, the instant that, to give ourselves time to breathe and to just know who we are?
I think you have to have discipline.
Good,
Discipline
yeah, that's true.
yourself, really. I
That
mean,
comes through time,
even for
though.
the kids, get off the computer all the time. You know, families should sit down together at a mealtime. That's start. But you really have to take time for yourself, time out,
Yep.
so to speak. Yes.
That's good.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let's begin through the actual book itself. If we can go to page 6, Swami, I can ask you the first question.
Oh,
Well, mind you don't need to, obviously, but I will read the question. We discuss in Thoughts and Things how to read your book so we can study and meditate on each and every word. On page 6 of Why Am I, you mention this again. This must be so important for us to know this. So why are you constantly talking about this? Why is it always in your teachings to meditate on each and every word?
Because you have to go through spiritual books, and these are spiritual books. They might be little stories, but every story, there's a reason behind every single story. So I think what you should do is read it, contemplate, meditate, discriminate. That's how books should be read. And you also have to know the author. Do you trust the author? Do you think the author's correct? If not, you can... I had a call from a devotee of mine yesterday who was on Google to somebody or other and said to me, Swami, he just says exactly what you say. Yeah, that's correct.
But you probably said it
must
30
be
years
right.
earlier than him.
He must be right then. But even if this person that he was listening to was New Age, there's nothing new about it all. It's been there forever.
So if the principles are true and correct, they will go through many ages. As in not new age, it's always going to be there.
Yeah. It's only that it's hidden. So is when you read a spiritual book. A lot of the answers are hidden. That's called the mystery of yoga.
So when you talked about studying and fact-finding and all that kind of stuff,
Mm-hmm.
so when you're reading, so we're reading Why Am I, there's no harm in fact-finding all these other things to know that what you're saying is true.
Absolutely not.
Beautiful. Now, you did touch on
You can have a
this.
second opinion if you like.
Of course. You touched on it right at the very start, but on page 7, I'd like you to explain to the people listening to the podcast the 4 states of consciousness. What are they, and what does each one of them mean?
Well, as it says on page 7, there's the gross material body. So that's here. This is your body. Like Mary Jane or Bill Jones, this is your body. And then there's a subtle body which is called, you could say, the astral body. These are reflections of the soul or the spirit body. Because you are a spirit in a body, not a body with a spirit. So you have to think about that. So now this spirit, or this soul, whatever you'd like to call it, I think nowadays it's called spirit because soul is too old-fashioned. It dwells in the top of the head and it reflects through your whole body. So what happens is, this is the gross material body. It grows old and it dies. Then we believe in reincarnation, so you become reincarnated. But until then, you have another body, which is the subtle body or the astral body. So this subtle body, if you go to a clairvoyant, they actually pick up from the subtle body. So there's and if you can see the auric field in people, that's sort of like the subtle body. When you have a dream and you're looking at yourself in the dream, you are seeing the subtle body. Now this also dies. Then you have the Jiva Atman, which I've written Jiva Atman there, which is the seer, which is really good because you can just remember it by it sees. It experiences everything that you experience in life, this soul or this seer body experiences. Now this seer body doesn't die. It remains because it's pure consciousness. And consciousness doesn't die. And then there's another body when this seer is so refined that it's just pure light. It can join with the universal consciousness or the creator consciousness. That is the fourth, which is Turiya, isn't it? That's on that next page.
Yep, page 8, yes.
Page 8. It should have been on this page, but somehow it didn't make it. Does that answer you?
It does, it does. Getting back to the consciousness side of things though, Swami, can I ask you the question, because of reincarnation, does that actually mean that your consciousness goes with you to the next journey?
It depends.
On what?
On how refined the seer body is.
Okay.
Because you can't in the physical body know everything that the seer has experienced or this spirit has experienced. You can't do that because you blow your brain.
So in let's say a normal everyday world, we go to Italy or we go to France and we know around the corner there's going to be a statue of something.
Déjà vu.
So yes, that's what they say. But is that what it is, or is that something from past times?
Sometimes if you're going on a big journey like that, what happens, your spirit or your soul, let's just say soul all the time, the soul will actually can go and have a look at it. And then it has the imprint and it goes into your lower mind. So that when you go there, you think, oh, I've been here before. You have, because you were there a couple of nights ago in your dream and you've forgotten it.
Yes.
Because how many people remember absolutely everything they dream at night? They don't.
No, that's so true. So from pages 8 to 14, Swami, moving on, pages 8 to 14, you talk about the king and his dream.
Yeah.
Can you explain the significance to all of us and why this story is so important?
Because the story shows you that you can live two lives, once in this astral and once in the physical. And when you are in the astral or that dream state, you can't remember what your little toe's done, can you?
No, true. Very true.
When you're having a dream, you're not thinking, oh, I'll turn around in bed tonight or something. You actually have to wake up to do that.
Yes.
We have to be semi-awake to do it.
Yep.
So this shows you that there are parallels here. One is he's lived his life in the astral, and when he wakes up, he's not sure what was the real one. I remember my granddaughter asking me once, Grandma, when I go to bed, what's the real world? What's the real world? She didn't know. She was totally confused.
Yeah.
Then recently, I was talking to someone and they had this great thing they'd listened to on the Google, and it was a fellow who had the same type of dream as this king, but had found the love of his life, soulmate. There isn't such a thing, but anyway, he's found his soulmate. He had wife and children, and they all died, and he woke up. So now he's traumatized and having to see a psychologist because he wants to stay there and not here.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, there you are.
So, with that, you mentioned in the past the story of the king is one we should always return to and contemplate and learn from. The question is why, and what are you trying to teach us? And maybe I'm going over old ground again, but maybe this is important for people to actually really understand.
Well, I think the story of the king, I mean, it's in the old scriptures. It's a very old story, it's nothing new. But it teaches us to be aware of those two worlds, the astral world and the physical world. And that even in the astral world, we really have to be aware. Be aware of our actions, our thoughts, because they're all real. Just the same as you have to be aware of them in the physical, you have to be aware of them in this astral. And to know that there's more to life than what you really think.
That's very good. Moving along.
Yes.
Page 16. You actually say in your book, whatever work you are doing, understand that you are doing it for the supreme principle, God himself in all names and forms. I personally agree with this 100%. Because I believe I work for God, or my God. But my question is, why did you write that? Is it because we're lazy, generally?
Yes.
Or
Generally, people are lazy. But to be aware all the time, like I've just said, to be aware all the time, because every thought, every action, every reaction, every deed is written energetically. So all this works on the refinement of the soul. So, and eventually that refinement of the soul, or that refined soul, will become God realized. So your consciousness will join with universal consciousness and become one.
That's interesting you actually mention that, because we in the world of lazy think that when we're at work, if we don't like our boss, we can cheat him by not doing, or her, by not doing our daily work. But if you reflect on what you've just said, you're actually cheating your God by not doing the work.
You're cheating yourself and you're cheating God, yes.
That's good for people to know.
Yeah.
Because I think sometimes we think, oh, we got away with this or we got away with that, but deep down, you're only cheating yourself and God.
That's true.
So if people don't believe in God, they're still cheating themselves.
They're
worst
cheating
case.
themselves.
Yeah,
and
worst case for them. Yeah.
Eventually you will become, aware of the universal consciousness, and then it's a long way. Start now.
Also on page 16, Swami, and I'm mentioning the page numbers, so if people are following, they can actually follow through with where we're at. You say you do not permit the events of your daily lives to bind you, but never withdraw yourself from them. Only by acting thus can you earn the title Liberated One.
Yeah,
Can you explain that to people listening, please?
Yes, because so many people, they want to renounce the world and just live hermit or monk-like existence because they want to be spiritually evolved quicker. You can't, doesn't work like that, because each one of us have a certain amount of karma to work off, and this karma comes to us in incidences, actions, and it's our reaction to them which should be thought through, not immediately. Or if someone, yells at you and upsets you, you don't yell back at them. You think about it for a while, how you can react, because each reaction brings about more action, and it's a treadmill.
How do you humble yourself if you're getting, as a customer service person, for example, how do you humble yourself if you're working at a deli in a supermarket, or you're working at a customer call centre and you're getting abused because there's no bacon, or they need to speak to the super manager, or whatever? How do you, as the person dealing with that customer, how should you deal with it? Do you basically take a breath and count to 10, or is it something that you think they must be having a bad day too? How do you focus on that when there's so much negativity thrown at you or attacked?
I was in the supermarket recently. I do go to the supermarkets, exactly. And the woman behind the cash register was actually throwing the goods. She was slamming them down, crash, crash. I thought, oh, she's broken that one. And her face was so angry. So when she sort of said how much it was, I gave her a big smile and said, thank you so much, you've been so helpful. And she didn't know what to do. I mean, I think it immediately brought her out of that bad temper, and
I agree.
she smiled back. So
the positive energy can actually...
You have to have the positive energy. Sometimes if someone's abusing you, it's really hard. But if you just stand there and smile and nod.
So to try to be this better person,
absolutely,
in that case, and then try to think that you're... Actually, if people thought they were talking to God, or their mother, for example,
their mother
would they
would
react that way? And most
yeah.
people probably wouldn't.
Yeah.
Because they'd get called by their full name, and then they'd settle down a bit.
Yeah, that's true.
On page 17, we talk about meditation and the stage of the body, mind, soul, and it leads to mukti, salvation, liberation, nirvana. Could you explain each of these to all of us? Because we think we know what some of these mean, but what does it mean to you? Sorry, what do they mean to you?
Let's see. So we'll get into this. So this is the end of it, isn't it? This is...
Oh, we've still got a couple of questions on page 18, Swami. So.
Oh, right. So.
But it is near the end. You're right.
Yeah. So if you follow that and you come through to, these all mean the same: liberation, mukti, salvation. It all means the same thing. It gives you peace of mind. What you want in this life is peace of mind. To know, yes, I'm okay, I'm getting there, I'm doing what it should be doing.
So I'm going to ask a tough question then, Swami. Why did we call them 4 different things and not just peace of mind?
Because I wanted people to really understand.
Good. So they get deeper. Important. When they see 4, they start to go a little bit deeper than just word of peace. I know what peace of mind means.
Yeah.
I don't need to worry.
They Google it. Yeah.
Yep. That's good. That's very good. Page 18. We're nearly there. Somehow I always seem to find that ego is mentioned.
Yes.
In your books or in your teachings, in your works, and even just conversations. You say that one develops the ego, becomes more and more refined, one's ego will mature. One's vibration will rise. One feels in harmony with the universe. Please explain again to us.
Goodness, you like your questions, Joe.
I do my homework, Swami.
You certainly have this time.
This time? Oh, I'm sad.
So, the ego is interesting because if you have an ego, I know it better, I know where I am, I am. You're not going to learn or allow to have anything else absorbed into you, really. You're going to we say that the ego is the ahamkara. That is part of you that will keep you reincarnating all the time. So if you can quieten this down and observe humility, you will have time to stop and listen.
How do you do that? How do you become more humble?
Discipline.
Actually, that's interesting you say that, Simon, because you've touched on that word a few times in this podcast, the word discipline.
Because discipline is going.
From all of us?
Yeah.
Or from the way the universe is,
mankind.
because we're back to instant again, everything's back to instant.
Yes.
So instead of stopping and smelling the roses, so to speak, or stopping and contemplating,
Yes.
it's just bang, 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 bang.
That's right. I want now. And I always think the ego is like a naughty little kid, really.
Could be a big
wants
kid
it,
too.
wants, yeah, I want it now. Well, you can't have it now, so that's it.
Very good.
Mm.
Have I missed anything? Is there any message you would like to finish off with, Swami?
Gosh, I don't think you've missed much this time. Absolutely not. But I think to read Why Am I correctly, as I say, critical thinking. And you can always look at or go and get your second opinion if you like. But don't diversify. Once you step your foot on the path of self-discovery, don't deviate.
Swami, you mentioned about not deviating from the path. How would you describe deviating from the path or not deviating from the path?
Well, I take things a bit more seriously than I think the normal person does, but I went on this path and I was asked by quite a lot of Mahatmas and also people who were very much into spiritualism to follow them, actually, and good positions were offered. But I think it isn't right if you go do one thing. I can't do this yoga or this spiritual yoga if I'm going to follow Buddhism, or if I'm going to follow some other Asian modality, or I can put it together with Christianity because that's who I am within me, although let's use that term lightly. My whole focus is this path, this way, and it's really, I must say that it's worked. It would not have worked if I had have gone over to Kathmandu, or if I had have gone to Japan, or if I had have gone somewhere like Laos. No, stay on. If you pick one path, you put your foot on that path. Don't move away. It just takes longer.
That's good to know. That's good to know. They talk about in business, 10,000 hours to really be a master of something. But something like this is a life's journey, and you're never going to master it, but you're going to get, for the average person, but you're going to get a lot closer to it than if you kept deviating and wishy-washy type of stuff. You need to focus.
Yes, you do.
And that needs to be, as you say, your life's path.
But not go away from your physical life.
Yes.
Really?
Yes.
There's no need to run away from children, husband, or anything like that. Or your job.
I had a comment there, but
you can bring it all together because these were the assets you were given for this life.
So if you had a big pie chart, as the old saying would go, you'd be able to cut pieces from all those aspects of your life to be able to still live your normal life. But in your quiet time, that's the type of time, or that's when you probably
in your
could
quiet
look at
time or your not quiet time. It's all part of the whole. It's part of the whole thing. Really, it is.
Brilliant. That's very good, Swami. Let's leave it for this podcast.
Thank you.
Thank you all for listening. And if you need a copy of Why Am I, please go to the website www.teachingsofsamata.com. Thank you, Swami.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us in another episode of the Teachings of Samata. For further information regarding these teachings with Swami Durgananda and her products, please check out the website below. To follow on with this journey, please subscribe for more.